Hello and welcome to the Books Crypto Club meetup on Zoom. It's Sunday the 24th of January and we have our meetings every week now where we have general catch up, no real agenda or structure, talking about various things in the crypto space. It's designed for novices, intermediates and experts. Everyone is welcome to share their opinion. And today's session, we're going to talk mainly about information sources and how you get to find out about what's going on in the crypto space, what projects there are, what coins there are, and so on. So I hope you find this useful. As the YouTube fans say, don't forget to subscribe and click on the like. And also we have a group on Meetup and we have a WhatsApp channel as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to join and learn with us. So here's to another good evening. We've got Georgina, Jonathan, we've got Maz. Welcome back, Maz. We didn't scare you off last week. Well, new face by the look of it with Mark. Mark, say hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Okay, good.
Thank you for welcoming me into the club.
No problem. You're welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And we've got Chris has joined us as well. Hey, Chris.
Good evening. Hello.
Hey, that's good. The way these sessions run, we never really know truly what we're going to talk about or what we're going to go through. So what I say to people at the beginning of these sessions is if there's anything in particular you want us to cover off, then let me know at the beginning and I can make sure that we discuss it in some way. So if any of you have any particular things that you're keen to either hear opinions about or learn about, or you've heard a phrase or a term that you don't understand, just fire away and we'll see if we can help you in any way. Same as when we used to have the physical meetings, whenever we had new people coming along, always try to make sure that they got value out of the session by getting their questions answered, amongst other things. Otherwise, we end up talking about whatever. So just got Leslie joined us again. Hey, Leslie.
Hi there. Sorry, I was a bit late.
Hey, no problem. We're starting a bit late anyway, because I decided at the last minute to reboot my computer, which is always a good habit when you're doing Zooms and that, but I left it a little bit late. So just before we kick off then, does anyone have any particular burning questions or issues or anything, or who'd like to tell the group a little bit more about themselves or what you're here today?
I don't have any burning questions, but I really want to share just how useful I'm finding Willy Woo's technical analysis and on-chain analysis, because I've noticed there are a lot of people who are following tech analysis and it has absolutely no bearing of what's actually going on in the crypto, and you can't use the traditional analytic tools. So I just wanted to share a bit about that at some point, just a snippet, nothing particularly stunning.
Be really useful actually, Georgina, if you want to share a link to Willy Woo's YouTube channel or his blog or whatever. You can do it both here and in the WhatsApp group that I think everyone here is a member of as well.
I have shared his Twitter and his Substack, I think, on the WhatsApp group.
Oh, great.
But what I wanted to do was to actually make sure that we perhaps talked about it so that people can understand a bit more about why I certainly think it's worth following him.
Yeah, okay.
But I can share the details again.
Okay, well, why don't we do that in a minute? What I was going to suggest with having a few new people here this evening, we'll just quickly whiz around those, see if they've got any particular things, then we'll come back and I'll pick on you, Georgina, to talk that through, if that's okay. That'd be fantastic. So, Chris, I think you joined us in last week, so tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, not a lot really. I mean, I've just feel that crypto is the best hedge against the fiat chaos that's going on at the moment. And I don't particularly like what's going on with gold because that's being messed around by the financial system as well. So my concept is that although crypto is still viewed as a high risk investment, I think it's becoming clear that the risks are reducing day by day. And we are looking at crypto as certainly part of our retirement funds.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that ultimately crypto is risky, but then eventually you realize so is everything else.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of what the relative. Well, welcome aboard anyway.
But my background, if it's of any interest to anybody, is that I started life as an airline pilot, and 12 years into that failed a medical, prior to starting training on Concorde, which was slightly sad. And we became farmers, and I've been a chiropractor, and we have property, and we farmed for a long time, became heavily involved in the development of embryo transplant, fertilized embryos. So we've done a fair number of things over the years. We had a major livestock export business that was brought to a sudden halt with BSE. And when one door shuts, you have to open another one. Life's like that.
Absolutely. Well, whereabouts are you based, Chris?
We're in the bottom end of Gloucestershire, on the sort of Wiltshire, Gloucester, Oxon borders, near Lechlade, which is top of the Thames, really.
Yeah, I remember the A361. Fond memories of Lechlade and the campsite there when I used to go to Furford every year.
Oh, there you go, yes.
Great, okay. Well, thanks for that then, Chris. And we've got Mark's joined us as well. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello. So I got into crypto, say 2017, 2018. Just got interested and thought, well, actually, it's something shaking up the whole money scene. And even more recently got even more hooked. So I am into some altcoins mainly, seeing can I get any gains with that, and also keep my eyes out, see any other interesting projects that I might like to get interested in or get involved in. Sorry.
Cool, excellent. And whereabouts are you based?
So I'm from Milton Keynes.
Milton Keynes, okay, sorry, yeah. I go through so many people, I keep forgetting where everyone lives.
Yeah.
My apologies to everyone now if I keep asking you the same question all the time. It's just I get lost. And we've got Vinod joining us as well. Hey Vinod, you managed to sort out your connection problem.
Yes, hi Gary and the team. Sorry, I was in a room with flickering lights and I didn't want to. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, he's gone to bed now.
Yeah, the kids are having their hot chocolate. So we had the microwave on, which is messing up the Wi-Fi connection. So bear with me for a minute.
No.
So I'm Vinod. I work as a doctor in NHS. Have been interested in stock market for over a decade now. I've been doing that separately, stock market investing. With the crypto hype, I got pulled into the cryptocurrency sphere in 2017. End of it, and then without knowing much about it, I knew of this group around that time but didn't take the action to join this group, and life took over. Crypto plummeted. I just kept everything there in the account. Many of them are like more than 90% down. Thankfully, some of them like Ethereum, and Ethereum is the main one, which has come back, so to save the day a little bit. So I thought, okay, I knew of this group in Bucks. Why don't I get part of it? Because I'm doing similar stuff for stocks with my colleagues and my friends. So I thought, okay, I understand the power of the group, like-minded people discussing about this from stock market world. I thought, okay, let me do this for crypto as well, because I'm also kind of interested. So that's how I now built up the courage to be part of this group.
Oh, brilliant. Well, as you'll discover, most of us don't bite. And I won't say who the ones who are that do, but they're usually okay, actually. That's great.
In fact, that was one of the concern at the start, thinking, well, I don't know much about crypto. What am I going to say in this group? I thought the group of experts, and I have no knowledge. I just want to make some money from crypto. And so that put me off initially.
Mm-hmm. Well, what you find, we had an example of it last week. We had a guy who joined us the first time, Chris. And he said, oh, I'm a novice, I'm new to this, blah, 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 blah. And then he started sharing all the trading he was involved in, all the altcoins he was investing in, how he was doing predictions and how he was using all sorts of stuff. It's like, and you call yourself a beginner. So you find that the great thing about this crypto space is that if you are absolutely new to it, then great. You're surrounded by people who want to help you. And if you think you're an expert, you don't know half of it. And I've been in the space for about 5-6 years. I'm learning every day still, and that's why originally I helped create this group, just to help share the knowledge and get people understanding a little bit more. So that's brilliant. I think we've covered all the new people who've joined us tonight. As I say, we don't follow a fixed format on this. I've only just re-kicked these off in the last couple of weeks. But what I was going to say, I was going to hand over to Georgina in a moment, because she was making a really good point about someone who's worth listening to in the crypto space. And certainly one of the questions I keep getting asked is, where do you find information out? Who's worth listening to, and who actually makes sense? So Georgina, I'll hand over to you. You want to share your thoughts on Willy Woo and that kind of thing?
Yes, certainly. I mean, he's actually a friend of mine. I met him in Bali back in 2016, 17. And it was extraordinary just being able to be up close and personal with somebody that, and funny enough, the guy who ran the group over in Bali was also called Gary, and he was absolutely the go-to person of what was going on in the crypto world. And he brought in some extraordinary experts. Andreas Antonopoulos was another one that we were very fortunate to meet. And Willy Woo is, he was originally very interested in the stock market, learnt how the stock market worked, did his investments, lost some, but he also gained a lot. Crypto world then emerged, and he got very interested in how that was working, but he realized that the technical analysis was not actually reflecting anything that was going on the activity on the blockchain itself. So if you do a search for what he calls the NVT ratio, it's something that he invented. There's a very good article in Forbes. It's the only article that he actually published on Forbes. He was asked to write for them regularly about crypto, but he didn't want to have that. He didn't want to be tied to, serving an audience, when actually he's very, very creative and wanted to carry on exploring the charts and the analysis that he was already doing. But if you do a search for NVT ratio, there's a lot of information out there about what it is. And basically, it's calculated by dividing the network value, i.e. market cap, by the daily USD volume transmitted through the blockchain. So he's very familiar with what activities, what movements there are on the blockchain. Of course, because it's all out in the public domain, you may not be able to identify who the big movers and shakers are. You can certainly monitor the big movements that are happening on each of the blockchains. He's got a paid channel on Substack. I'll share the links later in the WhatsApp group. I'll share them again. And so far, he's been absolutely spot on with being able to predict the movements of Bitcoin as far as you can be accurate. He's the closest that I've seen. I'm by no means, I'm not an expert. I don't understand technical analysis other than the very, very basics.
Okay.
But because I met Will and I could understand the philosophy behind what he was doing, I was very much drawn to him and what he was actually suggesting. He works with an organization called Glassnode, and again, I will share the details of Glassnode. And they, again, do on-chain market analysis. And very much, it's brilliant, because it's like the other day when Will did a quick talk, he was saying about, the movements on the blockchain are showing that there are a lot of people who are moving large volumes of Bitcoin, but they're hodling, and the number of people who are holding, in fact, I'll share a link to the chart that he shared on his Twitter account, because the number of people who are actually holding on to Bitcoin is massive. Mm-hmm. And which is very much a bullish signal, because people are not wanting to sell, because they can actually see that there's huge value in the Bitcoin is actually playing. So he's just somebody that I really recommend actually just looking, and he's interviewed by numerous people around the world, a lot of leading experts. He's been on various different panels, etc. And he's always got a little something additional that is worth listening to.
Okay.
So I'll share the links later in the WhatsApp group, but definitely something worth looking at.
Excellent, because Vinod was just saying, is that the same as the person on Twitter with the handle Woonomic?
Yeah, that's the one.
Excellent. Okay, that's good to know. So the only kind of comment I've got on that, because I find it interesting how people are doing, particularly technical analysis and that kind of thing, is when you think about those two metrics he's using of market cap divided by volume, is that market cap is derived from price. And therefore, you're already building in the price when you're dividing the market cap. So it's almost a self-referencing calculation in some ways. And I don't know how that plays out.
What did you say the formula was? Market cap divided by volume?
I think so. Georgina knows it offhand for MVT, and she put her spell on mute. Just
yes, I did. Yeah, basically it's measuring the volume of activity on the blockchain with the market cap. So yes, you're right in that there's going to be there is going to be the price of Bitcoin is going to be factored into it. Mm-hmm. But when he's I mean, what's interesting what I found interesting was that whenever he came up with a different way of actually measuring what's going on with Bitcoin and trying to predict its movement, whenever he came up with a formula, he would then track it back, and it correlates the movement of blockchain activity would absolutely correlate with the previous movements. And he was able to predict the last bubble. And it's like when there's a lot of people who are, particularly people who are in technical analysis, they're actually saying the Bitcoin's in a bubble, it's going to crash, because there's been this recent massive upsurge. He's been able to show on the charts why he doesn't think that it is in a bubble. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he predicted that there was going to be a wick down a couple of days ago. He said, I think that there's going to be a wick down, beware that it's going to potentially go down as low as $20,000, but the signals are still bullish and that it will actually surge up. He's actually predicting that it's likely to reach certainly $100,000, if not $200,000 by the end of the year. Okay. And the charts, they correlate with previous years when it's done this massive, great big leap up, crash down, leap up, crash down. And each time, a lot of analysts will say that each time it comes down, it never comes down more than 30%. And then it surges back up again.
Okay, so that's a really useful thing. I'm mindful. I don't know the level of everybody on here, but if anybody knows what market cap is, it's basically the number of coins that are in circulation, the price of the coin, in broad terms. So there are actually a couple of ways of calculating market cap. That's the main one. The other one is how many potential coins there are multiplied by the current price, which is something different. But most people tend to use number of coins available. So in Bitcoin at the moment, I think that's about 18.5 million multiplied by the price of the coin. So that's really interesting.
But even saying coins available can be a little bit misleading, because that's really coins issued.
Yes,
they're not necessarily going to be available. In fact, there's a good argument that there's very few, and from the comment earlier, most people are holding.
Well, and there's also been a fair few million that have been lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
4 million have been lost, evidently.
Yep.
Yeah.
The thing to be mindful of is that you do get this thing where I think it's been stated there's about 3 million have been lost. If they've been lost, then they could still potentially be found. And the other thing that a lot of people, and it astounds me to hear this, a lot of people don't realize that even if you've lost your wallet, which you've got the keys which give you access to crypto on, that does not necessarily mean you've lost access to coins. If you've retained the seed phrase that you used to create the wallet in the first place, you can actually recreate it. And this is where it's fascinating hearing about people who are doing like custody on a nano ledger which they stick in a safe, which is inside a Swiss gold vault or something. And they don't seem to realize that that's not actually protecting coins at all. So it's just something to be aware of. But yeah, someone mentioned, I think there's about 3 million coins, or Bitcoin certainly, seem to have disappeared out of circulation because it's thought that they're lost. A lot of people holding them. You've got institutional investors who are just storing them away. So that's a good point. But really interesting that, Georgina. Thanks for that. Okay. Anyone got any other thoughts on that?
Thank you, Georgina, because NVT is something that kind of crossed my when I was initially into cryptocurrency in 2018. I read about it and then I've forgotten it. I wanted to go back to what was that indicator that seemed to, that people have said that kind of nicely tracked and things like that. Because I've forgotten it, I couldn't find it. It was fortuitous to kind of hear that in my first meeting to know about it.
Is a high, I was going to say, is a high NVT an indicator of rising price? Which is good? A high ratio or a low ratio?
You need to read Will's descriptions. If you go to it, one of the links I'll share is Will charts, and he shares all his charts with all the descriptives and what he's actually looking at, and he looks at other things as well. It's like in a recent interview, he was sharing how, you know, there's been an explosion of new users. There's an explosion of new wallets being created. And also the number of whales that are in existence. He said there are about 2,200 whales. He said 20 of those will be exchanges. But there are a lot of big institutional investors, and that's people who've got 1,000 Bitcoins or more. So that's the very, very wealthy, or it's the investors that are actually investing on behalf of a few people. So that again, he said, is very much a bullish thing. But he has, it's better to read what he says about how he analyzes these things than me try to do it secondhand. Because it'll you know, we're already half an hour into our meetup, but also he's much better because he understands it.
Fair point.
I'm just reading what he says online, trying to find out the answer to that question there.
Yeah, that's sometimes the thing, that this is a game where it can be useful to have groups like this, because you can go away and read this stuff, you can go and watch the stuff on YouTube. Sometimes you just have a chat with people and someone happens to mention something and you go, right, I get it now. It kind of makes a difference. As like Vinod just put in a useful point there about, you know, NVT being kind of similar to a price equity ratio, which in some ways it is. So that's really good. Okay, well, thanks for that, Georgina. If you share the links, that'd be great. Always useful to get more insights, that kind of thing. Does anyone else have any other, you know, favorite ways of tracking what's happening or what's going to happen? Anything we can learn from each other?
Well, I like Ivan on Tech, as you know. He does take a long time to get to the point, but he's very good. And when I first started getting into this stuff, yeah, that's basically, so I came at it more from a blockchain perspective initially, so more interested in the technology and the other applications. But for a cryptocurrency view, then I found Ivan on Tech very good.
Yeah. Have you managed to do any sort of analysis as to just how good his predictions actually are or aren't?
Well, I was thinking about that when Georgina was speaking. These guys, and I don't know any of them, you know, any of their methodologies particularly well, but I think you have to make sure you get a wide spread of views. Yep. Because, you know, you have to understand, you know, their motivation, I guess. Yep. And some people are just very positive and can write a fantastic analysis and be very objective, and some other ones may not be, obviously. So I think you have to look at a lot of these different viewpoints to get a consolidated view, as you would do in any, you know, you would do in any sort of situation.
And I think that's a really good point for everyone as well. You keep hearing the phrase of do your own research. Do your own research actually means looking at other people's research, but building up a picture of a wider thing. And certainly with Ivan, the two things he uses is drinking lots of coffee and shouting. And I've yet to be convinced about whether any of the stuff he's come up with has actually been a good predictor.
So I've looked at some of his predictions that he made back in September, August, and July, and then what tracking forward to now, and quite a few of them were good predictions. So they were kind of where they were, and kind of when the breakdown was going to happen. It was kind of within a few days or weeks, so to speak. But then again, on the other hand, to be objective, he does recommend a lot of stuff. And anything that doesn't quite hit doesn't make it into later discussions. But then again, he does say that he's holding a lot of bags.
Yep.
So, and he does say he's doing it personally. So, you know, he is putting his own money into that.
That's fair.
He's very good at, sorry, maybe I can just add to that. He's very good at news. You know, if you want to know today's news in crypto, I would go there.
Yeah.
Because he seems to research all the, you know, what's going on, and then basically he summarizes it.
I think, as you said earlier, if you could summarize it into 10 minutes instead of 1 hour,
that would be nice.
Absolutely.
But one thing I like about him, he is a technologist. So he does go into the technology and breaks it apart, and then you can actually understand the fundamentals of what the project's about, and then helps you understand, really, is this something that I want to put my money into? Rather than just saying, right, is it going to pump, yes or no? Rather than like from a financial investment perspective.
Are we talking about, hi everyone, are we talking about Ivan on tech?
We are.
Yeah, funny guy that. I've seen a video when he was talking about Bitcoin blockchain, and I think, yeah, for me, to be honest, I throw something in the room open for discussion. 90% of the cryptocurrencies listed on CoinMarketCap won't survive 2-3 years. Because let me explain a little bit, if that's okay, or am I deviating off topic, guys? Sorry, I was joining a bit late. I'm driving at the moment.
Hey, no problem, because we're just basically talking about where we can find information out about news and trends and that. So, Chris, do go ahead.
Well, I mean, for me, a cryptocurrency, I don't know if Walton Chain is still around.
Yeah,
I think it was like tracking system for warehouse, which I think is very nice, and where you can settle your bills with the underlying currency. I get that point. And one source I used to follow was box mining. I think it's a guy called Michael, and he lives in China, and I found him to be quite trustworthy, because when I started reading about crypto, you all remember Cryptonic and Trevor James. I pretty much figured out that they were a scam pretty quickly. But box mining, I like him. I follow him, and based on your recommendation in the channel, I check now Cointelegraph, news.bitcoin.com.
Yeah. Cointelegraph's gone downhill somewhat over the last year or so. And it does seem to be just quoting whatever it's hearing. It used to have a guy who contributed called Nick Ayton, who was just controversial. I know Nick quite well. But he used to just write a load of complete whatever just to wind people up. And some Cointelegraph stuff, I think they were quoting about the double spend on Bitcoin the other day, which actually wasn't a true double spend.
Oh, yes.
And they just hyped it up a little bit. But yeah, Bitcoin.com I find as a news thing very, very good. Okay. Does anyone have any other useful favored sources that they use? Georgina, have you put your hand up again?
Yeah, I do actually watch the ones that I think are not so good, because you can get a feel for what the hype is, where the scammers are likely to come in. I don't like him. I also watch Tone Vays from time to time. He's full of swear words. He's incredibly political, but he does actually come up with some quite interesting stuff. Another interesting newsletter that I subscribed to was actually the one that I mentioned earlier, is Glassnode. And what I like about the newsletter is that they tend to say, they have a paragraph that says for the bulls, and says what evidence there is to suggest that the market is bullish, and then they do a complementary one for the bears, to say what where the indicators are to say that the market is likely to go down. We don't have a lot of time. I mean, you can go down so many rabbit holes with crypto. You can lose your life to it. But I certainly find that subscribing to the channel news.bitcoin.com is brilliant, because just going through, scanning the headlines, it gives you a really quick overview of what's actually going on in the world.
Well, that's good. The thing to point out for people, my experience as well, is it's amazing how good people are at predicting in markets that are going up. And it's the old thing, what is it? A leaky ship still rises with a rising tide. And so you got this thing that, you always see when Bitcoin's price is going up, it's directly correlated to the number of experts. And you get more and more people coming up saying, oh, I predicted this, I predicted this. You never see them coming out saying, I predicted it was going to plummet by 30%. I predicted it's going to drop. So do always be cautious about people who are always prove that they're right afterwards. And it's a little bit, as you said on Ivan, he's a bit spray and pray, and he'll put into a whole load of things, and due credit to him on that. But then he'll only, like many others, only talk about the ones he was right about, and he doesn't mention that the ones not so good. But that's fair. So Georgina, I think that's useful then, if they specifically talk about the bears and the bulls, so the ones who are looking at it going up and going down, that's a really useful different perspective. That's good.
But the issue I have, guys, is that all these people that predict the price going up, then what you have is like the Joe Public start buying into Bitcoin and not knowing anything about it.
Yep.
And then all they're doing is shooting the price up by just jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah. And this is something, when you look at technical analysis of crypto works not because of the principles behind it, which are based on shares and physical goods and that. Technical analysis works because everyone else is using it. So if you get technical indicators that say the price is going to go up, enough other people follow that and they buy into it, so the prices go up. And I think you're right, there is this risk that if people see in the news, oh, Bitcoin's going up, and at the moment in the UK, they reckon just over 5% of people in the UK now have crypto wallets. So, if they hear it's all going up and going up, more and more will come into it, increases the demand, fixed supply, price will go up. So you're right on that, Maz. Okay.
I think it's also evident in the number of scam MLM opportunities that suddenly explode into the marketplace. And I got so irritated by it, I've actually resorted to running my own webinars, giving a few closed groups some introductions into what cryptocurrency is, how it works, and the philosophies behind it, because I can't bear these. I keep getting these contacts, getting in touch with me saying, "Oh, do you know about crypto?" Yes, and immediately you see that there's some get-rich-quick scheme, and it's appalling when they can't even get the spelling right on the websites, and they're selling these opportunities for making lots of money. And of course, because Bitcoin is in the news and it is going up and up and up and up, people are easily seduced by it, and I think that I would question how many people have been sucked into that, and how many of that 5% have got crypto they think that they've got crypto, but they haven't.
Yeah, I think you're right. I see it increasingly via Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, and whatever other social media channels I use. The number of contacts I get from people who I've never heard of, and even on LinkedIn. And I get people getting in touch with me on LinkedIn saying, hi, blah, 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 love your profile. Do you know anything about crypto? And you go, well, if you look at my profile, you'll know exactly what I know. And you'll know I do know a little bit. And then invariably, I get to the point, I think it's on Instagram in particular now, I actually start answering the questions before they've asked them. And they get confused because it's always the, hi, how are you today, blah, 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 blah. And they go down the route, and eventually they're trying to sell you a mining deal or something like that. So I start giving them answers to the questions I know they're about to ask me before they've asked it. And it confuses them because they've obviously got a script. And there is just so many scams out there, you do have to be careful. I always say anything where it says guaranteed profit or guaranteed return, anything written in capital letters, and anything that says share to your friends, you know, if it has those three, it's like read no more.
Gary, can I ask, what are the actual scams that you're, and Georgina, what are the actual scams? I mean, obviously I don't click on these links, but I'd like to know what I mean, are they just trying to get you to invest in Bitcoin? If they know that you're in the industry, or, you know, then why would you go to them to invest?
So it's a mixture. Some of them are MLM type deals where basically they get paid for every referral that they're successful with. So
it's like a pyramid scheme type of thing.
Yeah. Now the thing with MLMs is that multi-layer marketing is not in itself illegal if there is actually a product associated with it. So this is why some MLM type things to do with perfume and this kind of thing are actually illegal. But if there's no product or service behind it, it is actually illegal in some countries. So what you find is I get surprisingly often, it's usually young women in America who want to sell me this great idea which guarantees return, blah, 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 blah. And they're doing brilliantly out of it. And I'll show you my wallet as to how much money I've got. And all it is they're doing well out of it by contacting people like me who then send in, who create a wallet and paying so much money. So there's usually nothing in it at all. They're just being paid for the scam. With some of them, it might be that there is a genuine mining contract where they're just on a commission to get you into that. There are some real ones on that, and you just have to be careful. But the majority, anyone who says, I guarantee X% per day, I just write back to them and say, that's absolutely fantastic. I really need the money at the moment. It's wonderful. You're a lifeline to me. That's great. But you're saying it's guaranteed, and they go absolutely, and you can see them kind of reeling in on it. And then eventually they turn around and say, well, look, I haven't got any money at the moment, but if it's guaranteed, can you just lend me the money for a few days? I'll put it into your deal, and then with the profits that you've guaranteed I'll make, I'll pay you back. You do well out of it, I do well out of it, and I never hear from them again. You know, so that's often the kind of thing. So yeah, most things are quite scammy on there. That's my experience. I don't know anyone who's had any good experiences with any MLMs anywhere. I'm seeing shaking of heads and no hands.
No, definitely not. Never ever.
Yeah.
The best one was margin trading is absolutely a child's play. You will just make money. You will never lose one. I said, so you're telling me that if I trade Bitcoin by leverage, that I never lose money? Have you seen the volatility of Bitcoin at times?
Yeah.
And then usually those telephone calls end rather quickly. But
the other one to watch out. You sometimes get people who say, "Oh, I see you're in the crypto space. I'm a crypto broker." Now, unless you're a commercial level person dealing in tens of thousands of crypto, the whole idea of crypto is to get rid of middlemen. It's to get rid of brokers and intermediaries. Yes. And so whenever anyone says, oh, I'm a crypto broker, go, why do you exist?
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen them, you know, basically offering to buy Bitcoin, but I'm assuming there is some scam there. I just don't know exactly what it is.
Some of them are actually legit. I think one or two in our group may actually work for brokerage type companies or whatever, but they're doing it on the commercial side of things. So they're acting as an intermediary with a firm who doesn't really know what they're doing, but who needs some expert advice. So that they do offer a service on that. Or quite often they're doing like what's known as OTC or over-the-counter trades. So I think one of our members does that, where he goes out, he finds a group of people who are all looking to buy a large amount of Bitcoin, and brings them together into a pool to then introduce them to someone who's selling a large amount of Bitcoin. So there are some legit people in this space, and it's just a matter of experience of figuring out which they are.
One of the ones that I came across recently was because there have been, it's like OneCoin. I think the team behind OneCoin, they've been chased around the world and with various different extradition orders, and there's a couple of others as well, because they have been tracked down and they have been, you know, there's legal action being taken out against them. One of the ones I came across recently was crowdfunding for an AI for investing in Bitcoin, but they were trying to raise $500 million. Now, what kind of AI project is going to require $500 million? There was no substance to the material that they offered on the site. There was nothing about the tech. There was no credibility. There was no team. There was no technical words other than there was this magical thing. And oh yes, you're in this pyramid scheme where you actually introduce friends, and that's the way that they're actually raising the funds. And they're trying to use words that are considered acceptable, I think, to get away from being red flagged by the legal authorities. And I'm very glad to see that since the 6th of January, the FCA has now actually, it's now law that if there's anybody offering any kind of investment services, they have to be registered on that site. And there have been a few of the scams. When you do a search for them, there was another one recently that was supposedly be a new company. And this woman that that joined my talk, she said, oh, it's new and I've done really well. And so she said, can I introduce you? And I said, yeah, sure, you can send me the information. And as soon as I did research on there, you find that actually the first iteration of the company was going back at least 2013. It was not a year old. And it had actually, none of the social media links worked. The website didn't work. There were spelling mistakes on the website. And unfortunately, I could not come back with any kind of positive feedback for her to say that it was actually as good an opportunity as she was believing it to be. So they're getting cleverer in the way that they disguise these scams.
Yeah. The other thing with the FCA is that you're right. If you're dealing in crypto assets in any way and you're dealing in the consumer market in the UK, you now have to register with the FCA. They have actually delayed it. It was due to go live on the 6th of January, but they're so far behind in the approvals and rejections process that they've actually extended it by, it's either 3 or 6 months. They have published an interim list of temporary authorizations. So these are ones where they've not rejected yet, and they've said, yeah, we'll keep you on the list for now. But you can find that on the FCA site. I wrote a short article on LinkedIn recently about it as well. But that can be a useful resource, because I think currently there's only 6 companies who are registered and approved by the FCA for crypto activities in the UK. But there's something like 150 who've got temporary authorizations, another 100 who've been rejected, I think, as well. So all good stuff. But yeah, there are always scams and hacks, and sometimes it's not obvious to work out what they're up to. I think Pi is the favorite one at the moment. People keep asking me about Pi, which
I just did on the chat.
Yeah, you just put it in the chat as well. Nice timing. Yeah, Pi seems to be just a gathering social media email addresses and that kind of thing. There doesn't appear to be any evidence of a blockchain behind it. And there are some red flags going up with a few people I know. And equally, there are a few people who are saying, oh, it's great, it's fantastic. So we shall see. So just tread carefully. That's good. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. Anyone got any burning questions or points they'd like to raise?
I got something to check if others don't have any burning ones.
Go for it, Vinod. You're in there first anyway.
Thanks. When we were talking about people predicting Bitcoin, which is one of the things that got me into cryptocurrency in 2017, and yeah, you're absolutely right, Gary. No one who said it's going to the moon said it's going to fall off first. So, I mean, prediction is always an assumption when there is millions and probably billions of people are trying to trade it. How could anyone predict the future? I certainly have learned that from my experience and also kind of seeing everything in the stock market. People predict it, but it's just assumption. Half of them get lucky, half of them don't. And if you don't get to hear from them until that comes true later, a few years later. So that's why I don't predict stock market. I go with the technical indicators. So do we in this group use technical indicators to look at buy, sell kind of points for cryptocurrencies? That'll be good to kind of think about. The second question, if I may ask, while I've got the captive audience, is are we just directly talking just about the cryptocurrency, the coins and tokens itself, or do we think about the allied kind of businesses that we can invest in, like the stocks, the mining companies, or the chips? NVIDIA was one of the stocks that were kind of skyrocketed in 2016, 2017, because they were in the chip mega businesses for the computer and mining computers and things like that. So do we go as a group, do we also think about those kind of things? Is something I want to kind of check.
I think it varies completely depending upon the individual. So some people don't trade. Some people are only just getting into it. Some people just bought a little bit of Bitcoin just to say they bought some Bitcoin. I trade a little bit just for the fun of it occasionally and to learn about it. I used to be quite heavily into the ICO space, so the initial coin offering space. I was actually an advisor to startups in that space. And I learned from that it's almost impossible to predict anything in this space. You can have a brilliant team, brilliant technology, brilliant idea, brilliant approach, and it still falls apart. You can have a lousy white paper, an awful team who don't have a clue, no vision, no principle, whatever. They launch the ICO and it still raises millions of dollars and it trickles away type thing. It was interesting you mentioned about getting exposure to the crypto market indirectly. So either investing in mining firms. So there's a company in the New York, I think it is, who have done a raise whereby they now invest in mining companies and you can buy shares in that company. So it gives you some exposure to that, which is certainly one. As the chipset manufacturers, I think just keep an eye out for anything that Antminer are using. They're really good. And I think they were using NVIDIA. I don't think they were using Intel chips. But the likes of ARM, for example, ARM might come up with some really great innovation because they're the chip design company down in Cambridge.
And apparently UK company Argo blockchain was mentioned by one of my friends. It kind of skyrocketed to more than £1 from 10 pence or something. So I'm watching that space. It's going to pull back along with Bitcoin. So if it kind of sets in based on my technical indicators, I might invest a little bit.
So the thing to think about chipsets and that kind of thing is that if all the major cryptocurrencies are using proof of work as a methodology and as a mining approach, then the chipset manufacturers are going to do really, really well. If, however, some crypto assets start switching to what's known as proof of stake, or proof of elapsed time, or various other things, they are computationally less intensive. So the chips being used to do the calculations become less important. So this is something where it's worth watching what's going on in the crypto space. For now, though, Bitcoin is proof of work, which is computationally expensive. So yeah, chip manufacturers are going to do quite well in that.
Yeah, I would like to answer a question. I'm sorry, I don't know who asked the question earlier with regards to technical analysis, because this is something I would have raised as well. I'm trying to do the following. With Bitcoin, I know what Bitcoin does, what the philosophy is. So when I think with Bitcoin I can only do technical analysis. So I'll just buy low and sell high. I'm not doing any margin trading whatsoever. Now, I'll just grab this example. Let's say Walton Chain. We have a blockchain that traces the product origin, etc. We've got the Walton coin or whatever it's called. I read the technical white paper, which I would say, you mentioned shares as well, which I would say is a 10K or 10Q. where you can make a little bit more sense out of it. Is it a viable business? Does it make sense? If yes, okay, what's the team behind it? I've seen somebody mention MindPie. A friend of mine told me, MindPie is great, you're gonna get rich. My first response was, it's obviously a pyramid scheme. There are only 2-3 people behind it. And what does it do? Anyway, so I think to answer your question one, technical analysis in crypto is important, but I think if you invest in shares as well, check the white paper, see if you believe that this business is actually bringing value to the market. If so, just apply buy low, sell high, or buy low and keep, or do dollar cost averaging, set an amount aside, use it on a monthly basis because you believe in the project. That's what I do with shares. I think it's a good approach with cryptocurrency as well. And I agree with Gary as well. If you want to invest in chips, Ethereum, I know that AMD, right in the beginning, the RTX 580s, they were very high in demand, and NVIDIA was always a bit more expensive, etc. Yeah, then it makes sense as well to check them because the demand will be there, and they will have a good business. So, yeah. Those are basically my 2 points for you. I'm sorry, I didn't know who asked the question originally.
I was commenting that on that. It's Vinod here, Chris. I recently noticed that this is particularly Bitcoin because I'm focusing on that now. The 50-day EMA seems to have some benefits. So I'm kind of tracking that. So it's just touched on 50-day and EMA and then kind of bounced in the last couple of days. So I'm kind of monitoring that to see if that kind of gives me any meaningful signal, trying to kind of translate some of my learning from stock market trading and investing to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'll offer something as well that I've seen a lot of people who've moved from the traditional markets like shares, stocks, futures, commodities, that kind of thing, who've kind of lifted and shifted their knowledge of those markets, and they've applied it to crypto. Some of the principles hold. So, if you can read a chart in a share price of its open, high, low, close, volume, you can read a price of a crypto. But beyond that, crypto behaves differently at times. And there was a very big case in the UK, and the FCA caught onto it a few years ago, which was a share trading company who were doing high frequency trading. And they basically lifted and shifted their algorithm for doing high frequency trading in shares and applied it to crypto. And they did really well for a few months, and then they went bust because occasionally crypto does not behave as rationally as shares do. It's a much smaller market. There are much fewer people. It's much less liquid. So it is just, I urge caution. And a lot of people who are in this space are smart enough to figure out that there are people who don't know any better. And so they know that if they see, a golden cross with 200-day moving average crosses the 50, that means one thing. Well, if they know that most people think that means it's a good buying signal, then they'll have come up with a strategy to beat that already. So I think there is some value in it, definitely, but I'll just urge some caution on it. And it comes down to ultimately a good lesson I learned years ago is that you need to come up with your own personal strategy, your own personal approach, try it, and if it doesn't work, change it. And that seems to be the thing that at least if you're then consistent, then you do quite well. And if you're consistently right, come back and tell us, because then we can all learn.
Definitely.
I certainly will do, based on my kind of trial with the indicators. I will certainly bring it back to the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think for those who used to come to the meetings we used to hold in Marlow, I always used to say the only people you should listen to are the people who've got 3 things. And if they've got these 3 things from crypto trading, then listen to them. And the 3 things are their own private island, their own private jet, and their own private yacht. And if they haven't got all the 3 of those, then they've probably just been fortunate. And the great thing about that advice is I haven't got any of those, so you should ignore my advice about listening to advice. So you can't win.
Can I just ask one last question? And maybe I'm completely wrong here, but the volatility of Bitcoin, has it settled down a little bit? Because back in the days, I've seen that Bitcoin would drop $2,500 in a day. These days, it seems much more progressional. Is this because we've got futures, or is it just because I'm reading it wrong? But I think it's got a little bit better.
I think it's simply because the sheer volume and the number of people involved is growing. So just the very nature of it, that a large ocean will have less volatility than a little pond kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's simply because there are more coming into it. And you're right, things like futures contracts kind of kill some of the extreme levels in it. But even with that, I love it. I'm on some Facebook groups in crypto, and you get people saying, oh, Bitcoin dropped 20% or something the other day. What happened? And I just send a note back saying, what do you mean what happened? That's just a normal day of crypto. It does vary. But yeah, I think the volatility may be dropping a bit. But I'd need to look at the numbers. We need to use Georgina's MVT calculation, which looks at the market cap and divides by the price, and I'll probably give you an indication on that as well. But folks, it's coming up to 6 o'clock, and we usually close off at this point. So I just wanted to check if anyone's got any urgent things to ask or any thoughts about whether you found this useful. Is there anything we can do to improve it or anything for the future?
This is my first meeting, so do we get any kind of minutes or something like that because Georgina, Leslie, both of them made some very good mentions, which I made note of, but generally speaking, how does this get shared with others?
Sure. So what I try to do is, Georgina's really good. She puts stuff in the WhatsApp group, which is fantastic. If anyone else wants to do that with useful links, that's great.
Or can I join the group as well, please?
Sorry, again?
Can I join the WhatsApp group as well, please?
Yeah, no problem. I can send a link on that. Everyone is welcome to join that. What I also do is I record these sessions and I post a link up to them within a YouTube playlist I've got as well, so people can listen to it at their leisure. Most people don't. They listen to for a few minutes and then fall asleep, I think. But if there is anything where you heard something, you think, what was it that they said? Then it allows you to go back on there. So yeah, no problem with that. Any other last minute thoughts, comments, or do I wish you all a good evening?
Just want to say it's really useful. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say very quickly that when it comes to investigating, particularly the smaller cryptocurrencies, I subscribe to all sorts of very spammy groups on Telegram, because then I can actually watch to see which ones are being pumped and manipulated. And if I want to invest in something, I look to see whether it's going to fall prey to being manipulated by people who are literally just doing the pumping and dumping. I never take advice that they say, buying at this price and sell at that price, because invariably those groups are set up because you are the dumping mechanism and you're not there to actually make the profits. You're the ones that are actually going to lose out on it. But it's another way of tracking to see what's going on with the individual cryptocurrencies. And I follow various different things that Chris was saying about how to analyze different cryptocurrencies. But I also look to see which ones I've got industry knowledge of and industry experience. And I would have thought you, Vinod, you'd be well placed to look at the medical ones, because there's some very interesting medical projects out there that you'd be able to say, actually, this sounds genuine. This, I know that expert. I understand the philosophy behind this, and I understand the thinking behind this particular cryptocurrency. And balancing those two things, you can then get a fairly, a moderately interesting, instinctive idea as to where different currency is going to go. So that was just my last 2 penneth.
That's good. Thanks for that, Georgina. The more you can learn about this space, the more you come to realize by developing your knowledge, it allows you to lose money more efficiently. It's the ultimate thing,
Great comment.
That's reality. Even with the pump and dumps, I went to an event in London a while ago, and they were talking about all sorts of crazy stuff. And I said, you realize that this is a scammy pump and dump? And they said, oh yeah, we realize that, but as long as we can get in early and out early, we're still making our margin type thing. It's like, I don't subscribe to that. Okay, so I hope everyone has got some value out of today's session. As I say, join the WhatsApp group if you're not a member. Ping me a note if you don't have the details. And we'll post the link up to this on YouTube as well, so you can watch it again. and I'll start running these every Sunday at the same time as well, and hope to see you all again sometime. So have a good evening, be safe, and go and wash your hands.
Thanks very much.
You too,
Great
everyone.
evening.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.